Goodbye, sir.
Just hang on. All right. I think we're online. Other people are joining us as we speak. Let's just give it a few more seconds and see the total that is coming in over here.
And it's friendly as well. That's what I like about it. The problem is just getting into Soweto. That's the thing. Yeah, if you Uber there. Sorry? Sorry? Oh, yeah, no, definitely.
All right, shall we get the show on the road? Can everybody hear me? Just give me a thumbs up. Great. Thank you. Just make sure that your own microphone is muted. That's just in the bottom left up there. You'll see mute. If you do want to talk and we give you the thing, then just hit unmute and that should be fine. And then please make sure that if there's any kind of a technical issue that you're able to sort it out, hopefully, and we'll be able to respond like that as well. If there is any kind of feedback that you want, you know how to do that down the left-hand side as well. So, good evening, everyone. It's great to have you on board the Zoom session. A couple of things that we want to follow on from the previous things. It looks like I've been reading a lot of the forum discussions today. It looks like you're getting on top of this very nicely. You can start now looking forward to week 4 and 5, where a lot of the stuff that we do in strategy starts coming together. And you'll see that it starts making a lot of sense. The stuff that we have done starts making a lot of sense as you apply it into the work that you are actually doing in the real world and the companies that you want to turn around and how you want to change the world yourself. So as we move towards 4 and 5, you'll start seeing diversification starts kicking in next week. And then very importantly, how to make in the last 2 weeks, how to make your strategy stick, how to actually get it applied into the real world. We'll be looking at some of the reasons why strategies actually fail. Somebody's got their microphone on. I can hear discussions in the wrong place. Please make sure that your microphones are muted unless you actually want to interrupt and say something. You don't want to hear too many dogs barking in the background and so on. So, to the discussion for this week, I take it that we got a lot of good feedback from the presentation of the governor Saturday before last, and that seemed to be very effective, and he certainly enjoyed it. So thumbs up to you guys for the good impression that you left with him. I think you've done well for yourselves, and in addition to that, he's also indicated that he enjoyed it so much he might make himself available for future such cohorts or sessions in the future for your subsequent MBA students. So well done to you. You created a good impression, asked good questions, and hopefully you got some good substance out of that as well for your own thinking around strategy. When we were looking at strategy, there were a couple of things that we wanted to make sure that we had in place. I wanted to ensure that some of the discussions that we had from previously had not been missed. So when looking at our strategy, That is a very peculiar noise over there. I hope that you're not hearing it as well. It just sounds like somebody scraping the bottom of the barrel. Maybe that's your supper. So when looking at strategy, remember we started off with this whole thing of the run process, and this needs to be just tracking on in the back of your mind as you are thinking about strategy. How does this run thing work? So we spoke about reason and how reason works. We also spoke about the unction, and reason is the logic, it's the thinking, and it's the place often where people just leave strategy and nothing actually gets translated into the real world. Unction, on the other hand, is the value system, it's your monitoring process, it's your communications of the strategy. This has come through very effectively in a number of your discussions as to the importance of not only having strategy at the top level, but making sure that everybody in the organization understands the strategy, understands the purpose behind the organization, and not only that, is able to put effectiveness into it. Then, of course, there was the other bit, which was nimbleness. We wanted to make sure that people are able to respond when there's an opportunity or a threat. You can really respond very, very quickly. So if we have this run strategy running in our heads, what have you done so far? Well, you've undertaken quite a lot of the reasoning thing. You're understanding the importance of unction. One of the things that's going to have to kick in the last week or two is this whole thing of nimbleness. How do we take this great strategy that we've thought about, these great mechanisms that we want to monitor within the organization, and make sure that the people themselves actually get to deliver on the strategy? Getting people to deliver is a difficult thing because all strategy, remember, requires, and this is your leadership imperative as well, all strategy is at some stage going to require that you are bringing about change. Otherwise, you're just following some kind of a trend. You know, this is what we did 10 years ago, and then 5 years ago, then last year, and it's all just on a sort of a trend, and we continue the trend. There's no point in strategy. Strategy means some kind of substantial change or paradigm shift or exponential curve into, or a quantum leap into the future that is going to make you much more competitive and much more effective and efficient in that which you are going to deliver in the future. So that's where the nimbleness starts kicking in. Everybody themselves needs to be nimble. Your systems need to be able to accommodate nimbleness and not restrict people, but liberate them into delivering. Imagine if everybody in your organization understood exactly what it was that they needed to achieve. And it wasn't just limited to you as the leader or part of the leadership team to identify every opportunity, to identify every danger. It's got to be delegated out. That kind of authority has to be pushed down into the working bits of the organization. Imagine when you were a junior, a real junior, and you thinking in more complex things. You know, you've got a higher level, higher ordered level of complexity in your thinking about the business. And as a result of that, you're seeing things come up that maybe the leaders haven't, you know, observed yet. How frustrating was it for you when you were not able to go and tell them and say, hey, here's an opportunity, or here is a danger, here is a threat that is coming our way, and you haven't seen it yet. And maybe you did, maybe you were given the time of day, maybe they did take you seriously. But so often I hear the stories where real talented potential leaders and future leaders have just been so frustrated and not being able to do strategic things that are nimble because the policies, the restrictions of the organization, the authority levels, and the intransigence of leadership themselves have not allowed for it. So the lesson for us is then, obviously, make sure that you are never like that. Make sure that you are the person that is going to be able to liberate your organization into exceptional things in the future. So once we've got that nimbleness down, there's a thing that has to be asked around purpose questions for the organization. Remember, we dealt with this purpose. Now, we dealt with it for you yourselves, and hopefully you've been able to take that into your lives. You know, who are you and what are you really good at doing, and what is the impact of what you do on the rest of the world and the people that you do it for? when trying to come up with a purpose question for the organization, more or less it works in the same kind of way. You might want to take a screenshot of this one, because we are, that would be the organization, we are whoever it is, and we are passionate and good at helping who's your market, or who the people that you are serving. And you know, if you are in the public service, that would be our citizens or whatever it is. What do they need that you are delivering to them? So we are so-and-so, and we are passionate and good at helping these people that need this stuff, so that they can do, what do they do with the stuff that you actually do for them, either be it a service or a product that you are delivering to them. And then tack on this one at the end, because this gives you your long-term perspective, particularly as a leadership group, so that you don't become, or you are not seduced into short-term thinking. Your lasting legacy is going to be what? How you changed the world, or how you just made a quick buck, or whatever it is. Lasting legacies is the stuff, it's the substance of the effective great organizations. The lasting legacy is how we, I don't know what it is that you do. So how you serve the nation, how you serve the people, how you serve your market and change their lives, or whatever it is. Remember, all business, all organizations exist to solve the problems. So what's your lasting legacy? We were the people that solved this particular problem. Then we had a brief discussion, going back a couple of weeks now, to this whole thing of passion. And we left it out. Everybody agreed that they were passionate. I wonder if that is still true. Let's just unpack that very slightly before I move on to why people behave in the way they do, which is going to be your great challenge as you start implementing change and strategy within the organization. So passion is birthed in a desire for success. Not only that, it's emotional, it's not rational, it's energizing, it strives for immediate gratification. Hey, remember this. Maybe you've done a little bit of emotional intelligence and so on. And this immediate gratification, well, it's not the stuff of emotional intelligence. It's the stuff of passion. That's exactly right. So you can't only have people that are so emotionally intelligent, they are completely boring and logic and rational and so on. Without a passion, it's going to be difficult to take the risks and step out there, because you're just rationalizing all the time. So you want immediate gratification, let's go and do this thing. Let's go and get it. And that's where the thing of inspiration arrives, because it's the fire within. It creates the possibility of sacrifice. Remember, we asked that big question. So one of the big definitions of passion comes from one of the great writers. Passion is the love of seeing an idea becoming reality. Everything on this planet starts with an idea. The idea can come for you for the next big thing, maybe. Maybe the great ideas have come and they've gone, and nobody did anything about it. And maybe that's because of your lack of strategy in putting it into the world. Or maybe it was a rubbish idea. But your passion is seeing this idea becoming reality. Whether the idea is something that is artistic, it is an expression of your inward manifested artistry. Perhaps the idea is a new kind of technology. Perhaps the idea is a new way of doing your business. And that would be a strategic thing. Perhaps your passion is your business. Perhaps your passion is somebody, or whatever it is. But the idea has to become reality. And that's where passion kicks in. So it's not just an idea. It's not just a dream that sits in your head. Passion is, I'm going to grab this thing. I'm going to make it work, whatever it takes. And so that's where the idea becomes reality. And you can see the energy that gets released when people are so keen on that. Remember, love is not always a rational thing. As much as you might want to put it down on a spreadsheet, love is an emotional thing. And unless you keep it inspired and you work at it, the passion will fade. So a couple of things just to ask yourself. What are you passionate about? How do you recognize that you are passionate? And passionate yourself, and maybe if somebody in your organization that you want to be passionate is or is not passionate. Check that out. And then, do you understand the passion that is inside them? Maybe they're passionate about something else, you just don't understand it. You know, I know a number of people that are passionate about fishing. I don't understand fishing. I just don't do fishing. I'm not passionate about it. I can understand other people being passionate about it for some weird reason, but that's their thing, and it's not for me to go and hamper that. So understand other people are going to be passionate about other things. Let them be passionate. Passion is a wonderful thing. And if it spreads over to you, so much the better. So can you measure passion? We did discuss this briefly. Yes, you can. Passion is the willingness to sacrifice. So if somebody says to you they're really passionate about something, then how do you know? Well, you just got to say, check, how much are they actually sacrificing? Are these the people that are coming to work late and leaving early? Are these the people that are really just not available for anything slightly extra? That would be very, very sad, because then it just indicates a lack of passion, no matter what they say. They could be saying, I am passionate, but they don't do anything about it, and they certainly can't show that they are passionate in any way whatsoever. So that's how you check passion. In addition to that, you can define passion, as we've said, the love of seeing an idea becoming reality. Here's the big one. Can you develop passion? What about you yourself? Are you passionate about some of the things that are in your life or not? If you're not passionate, what are you going to do about it? Can you stir it up within yourselves? Well, hopefully you can, and hopefully it's going to be something that you generate in your own life. When you recognize there's something you've got to be passionate about, what do? You develop your passion. And then more importantly, maybe, if you're a leader, you've got to make sure that other people are passionate so that you can help guide and direct the journey to the great consequence, to something that is happening in the future. You're going to be able to instill passion or inspire passion so that the great future and cause can be achieved. So in developing passion, here's just a little thing that some people have found very, very useful. And to develop your passion as a leader, think of this. When you're applying strategy, it's so much easier to apply strategy that people love and they're passionate about, as opposed to just, this is just another program and we are so bored with these programs and so on, we're going to avoid it. So what do? You apply your passion. First of all, it's the ability and willingness to sacrifice. The way we develop passion is to feed or fuel the flame. If not, the passion will die. We've indicated previously, a lot of people have said that passion, in fact, is the fire within. Think of a fire. If you've got this wonderful fire blazing and you just let it blaze, you don't put any more logs or fuel on it, what's going to happen? It's just going to die out. And that's what happens to passion. If it is not fed, if something doesn't feed it or fuel the flame, it's just going to die out. Think of things that maybe you are passionate about, or somebody that you are passionate about in years gone by. Now you think about it, you think, I'm not really that passionate about that thing anymore. It could have been a sport or a person or a pastime or a hobby or even a business. And you're just not that passionate anymore. And quite probably you'll look to it and say, there was nothing to feed it. There was nothing that was giving me pleasure inside the practice of that. And so the fire died out. That's what happens to fire. You've got to keep it going. And so how do you feed the flame? Well, here's a nice little acronym, just FEED, feed the flame. And you do it in the following way. You've got to keep the focus going. Think, focus. This is practicing mindfulness about the thing that you are really focused on, making sure that that is still giving you the wherewithal to achieve the great cause or future that you want, that success. Focus also helps you to cut out the other things around you that are actually distracting you or taking your energy away from the thing that you want to be passionate about. In addition to the focus, which just brings in your energy and your receptiveness to this thing that you want to be passionate about, you've got to educate. Now, this is a little bit counterintuitive, because remember we said that passion is more emotional, but if there is not the substance to keep the emotion going, then it can also just become confusing. Think of a person who's really passionate about a sport, like soccer or so. You're really passionate, but you go there and you're not educated. You don't know who the players are. You don't know how the rules work. You're always confused about the offsides rule. You might still be passionate about people kicking a ball around and all that kind of thing, but you're going to be confused And unless you are able to enter into the thing by educating yourself and understanding the cause that you want to be passionate about, it's going to be very, very short-lived. So you need to find out about the stuff. And that's why, for example, many of you are doing this particular part of your own education advancement. You are passionate about a certain thing, and you're bringing substance to the passion of your life. The next E is to enthuse or emote. This enthuse word comes up again, one of my favorites, and it is all about the God breath within. It is the enthusiasm that you have. It is pulling your energy into this thing that you want to create, or the success that you see in the future. Not only that, it could also be the great cause that you are bringing other people into as well. The emotion side of things, not a problem to be emotional. And for some of us, it might be more difficult because we're more inclined to be introvert or guarded in expressing our emotions. But when people see that you are emotional about something, they say, man, this is something that he's passionate about, or she is really prepared to express herself about in such a way that we might be able to get on board with this. We have to take it seriously because there's enthusiasm and there's emotion. There's emotional engagement. There's an emotional tie and commitment to this particular cause. And so how do you do that? Well, the next thing is demonstrate. You do it. So if you are not a participant in the thing that you're passionate about, well, it just doesn't help at all. And the things will become then short-lived in terms of where you're passionate. So let me give you a real case study, a little example of this. Years ago, I was asked by one of my clients, a German company, who was bringing out a young potential future leader to South Africa for part of his experience on the way that he was being educated for senior positions within the company back in Germany. So he arrived in South Africa. They asked me to sort of help with his grooming, do some coaching, moving into the leadership understanding that was necessary for the role that he had to play, but also to get an understanding of a developing world situation as opposed to, you know, just being constricted to a first world situation in Europe, and his vision and his horizons would have been limited. Very good idea. And so more and more people are coming to South Africa for exactly that purpose, by the way. So I met with him and I tried to find out what his great passions were. And one of the things that he indicated was, in fact, that he wanted to find out how rugby works. Work it out, rugby for a German. Very good at soccer and a whole bunch of other things, but this rugby thing. So what did I do? He wanted to get passionate about this, otherwise it would have just been some head knowledge. So we focused on it. So I was able to bring his attention to rugby in understanding that rugby evolved out of soccer and it took a different sort of route. Then there was an exposure to it in that focus so that he could actually start learning a little bit about it, understanding that we're going to be focusing now on the rugby thing. We're not going to talk soccer, we're going to talk rugby. With that had to come some education. He had to understand some of the rules, and not only that, some of the players and all that kind of thing. It was important for him to get emotional about it. How best to get emotional about any sport than to go and watch a live game. So we took him along to one of the great games with the big stadium full of the other 40,000 emotional other people, and the emotion is always contagious. And he started getting emotional about it as well, particularly because we made him choose a team that he was going to support and put him in a jersey and all this kind of. He became quite emotional about this, particularly when they won. And then the last step of this whole thing was for him to actually go and do it. So yeah, we had a young German who had to go and play rugby. No, we weren't that cruel. What we did, we just took him to a minor version of it and made him play touch rugby. And he was quite athletic, so he took to it very, very well. He got very enthusiastic about it as well, and his understanding of the dynamics of how rugby is was very profound. So that was years ago. To this day, he's still pretty much so one of the few Germans that's passionate about rugby. Why? Because we developed a passion for it, not just a head understanding of some kind of intellectual proportions. So take this, feed the flame, feed your passion, make sure that it works for yourself, but not only for yourself, also for the people that you are leading. As you lead people through change into new dimensions of your strategy, there's got to be some passion for it as well, so that they can overcome personal obstacles, personal resistance to change, so that they can see the new cause as something that is worth going all out for. So let's move on. You've got to have passion, you've got to have heart, you've got to have character. Where does this come from? And people talk about this and don't always understand what this character thing is. You as a leader, you're going to be expected to have character on an ongoing basis, particularly when the going gets tough. You're going to have to dig deep, as they say. So when we talk about the values, because these kinds of things come out of values, and values, as we have discussed before, have something to do with our belief system, but not only that, it has a consequence into our behaviors and the actions that we undertake. The actions that we consider are usually directed from, what do you want? And you look at what you want, and there's got to be some kind of a reward. And it's not just a direct line. There's got to be some kind of link that goes on a little bit of a route between what do you want and what's the reward that you're going to get from this thing that you want. And so this is what we call the ethical loop. And this ethical loop sort of has a profound consequence in the way that we make our decisions to make sure that we haven't lost our way in doing what we do. And we can refine our ethics. We can refine our business practice into something that is much more profound and sustainable in the long term for our competitive success. So what do you want? Let's take it from there, starting point. I want success in this area. So there's some motive. We have to ask the question, why do you want this? Motive usually comes down to things of personal gratification, maybe meaning and significance in your own life. Maybe you just want to impress a couple of people. Maybe it's out of fear even, because fear can also be a motive, fear of failure, fear of the unknown, whatever it is. There's got to be some kind of motive that is going to lead you to the rewards and the long-term sustainable success of your organization or company. From the motive, it doesn't just jump to the reward. The world is not that simple. You've got to think about this. Thinking, very, very important. A lot of people just skip this bit. They say, yeah, okay, here's my motive. I'm just going to jump into action and see what happens. And as a result of that, they have unintended consequences. They sometimes bring disaster down on their heads. They create pain and suffering for other people as well. And that's just not good. Simple as that, not good. Think about it, because the way you think is going to determine what you do. And what you do is going to determine the consequences, be they good or bad, and that's going to feed back into your life and into the rest of the world. Doesn't do that. So the way you think is going to determine what you do. What you do is going to determine your rewards and the consequences in your own life and in the rest of the world. So from the thinking, then you've got to go into this action stuff. So we're going to discuss this thinking a little bit more later on, and how do we think about these things. From action, then obviously there comes a reward. The reward can be negative or positive. It's not always just a happy, smiling face. It's an unhappy face. So that's the reward. And do we just leave it there? No. This is a loop. And we want to make sure that it feeds back into our intelligence, so the next time we are confronted with something like this, we can actually do it better. That's how learning takes place. So the reward then actually leads us into an analysis of the outcome. Is this outcome positive or negative? Does it help the group or individuals? Is it building or breaking, hurting or healing? Is there progress or regress? Is there peace or anguish? What is the consequence of this action that I have undertaken? And once you've determined those kinds of things, you've done some kind of analysis, which then leads you to, how do you do? Do you do it this way or do you do it that way? And that puts you into this ethical sort of framework. What ethics? The ethics that say, these are our rules that can help us to be successful. You've heard that phrase before, maybe, because that has to do with your value system. So the rules that help us to be successful. We all have these rules. And we're going to have a look and see what role do they actually play. Because from there, we start then refining what we actually want. Do we just want these things, or is that just a little bit too superficial? Do the ethics allow me to have those things? Do my rules allow me to have those things? Or should I redefine what I actually want so that my rewards are correct and are not causing sort of breaking down and hurting and regress and anguish in the world around me, or even in my own life and the life of those dear to me. So when it comes to business values, these are some. This is an example lifted actually and then put in from three of our clients. And it sort of spoke to touched on a number of key points. Note that there's only 7 of them. The reason for this, and I encourage people not to have too many of these rules, and this is just a thing that has developed over the years. When you've got too many, it's difficult to remember them, particularly if you're in crisis. When are you most confronted with an ethical dilemma, or when your values are under threat of being compromised? It's when you're in crisis. And so when you're in crisis, you need to be able to pull up these things to help you make a decision as quickly as possible. So trying to remember more than 5 or 7, it gets very, very difficult. The research indicates that we can remember 5 without having to think about it, 7 with a bit of thought, and then everything after that becomes, unless you're exceptionally gifted and brainy, after that it becomes a little bit tricky in a crisis when you're already thinking of other things. So look at these. Be honest and authentic. That's all pretty good. Live the purpose of your business action. That's quite profound. You've got to live it. So you, the leader, and everybody in the organization, you've got to be living this kind of thing. Good example of this, one of the writers came out of a movie. He was visiting Japan, and he came out of a movie one night and was walking along the sidewalk, the pavement, and a guy in front of him, he was watching this. There was a Toyota parked over there, and he could see that the windscreen wiper on the Toyota was broken in some kind of a way. The guy walking along in front of him stopped, went across to the Toyota, and fixed the windscreen wiper. So this writer actually called him aside and said, "What are you doing? Is this your car? It doesn't seem like it's your car. Yeah, you're fixing the windscreen wiper. What's going on?" And the guy sort of looked at him as if he was a little bit weird and said, "Well, I work for Toyota. We can't have a car like this on the street, so I got to fix it." So he was living the purpose of his business action. Not only was he working for Toyota during the day in his sort of 9-to-5 job, but he lived inside the purpose of that particular company, making sure that the people that drove their product, drove their motor cars, were having a good experience. And when something broke, he was able to fix it very, very quickly instead of this guy having to go to some mechanic to get it fixed. That talks about living the purpose of your business action. So be beyond expectation of mediocrity. Mediocrity is just what everybody's doing. It's the average and below average stuff. You've got to be dependable. This is a very good indicator of reliability, dependability. People want to be able to trust you. You've got to be professional. This is delivering the goods, no matter what the circumstances are. What you've got to be professional and deliver those goods at the standard that people expect and what you have promised. You got to be passionate and enthusiastic. If you're not doing it, nobody else is going to be passionate or enthusiastic about your products or your service offering. You got to develop character, cultivate relationships, and maximize impact. So these are 7 things that these businesses actually put forward as their big values to make their businesses work. I'm not saying that this is the universal values for everybody. There are some of those, but this is just one of those things. Bless you, J.A. So it all comes down to the behavior construct. When you look at yourself and when you look at your ethics, and then very importantly, as a leader, when you start trying to understand other people, what makes them tick? And why do they do the things that they do? Because when you look at what they do, sometimes it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So let's have a look at the behavior construct over here and try and get an understanding of how we behave and how other people behave. Once you get a handle on this, let me tell you, it's a life skill. It helps you with your kids. It helps you with your colleagues. It helps you with your clients, with your suppliers as well, because people will end up doing things that you don't fully understand. And as a result of that, you need to dig a bit deeper to understand what their motive is or what their value system is behind the actual actions or behavior that you can observe. And so when you look at it, people behave in a particular kind of a way. We'll just call that behavior. Those are the actions, the incidents of actions that people take. And it's very superficial. When you see people for the first time, they do things in a certain kind of way. You're making a judgment about them within the first minute. Are they good people, bad people, trustworthy, not trustworthy? But we've all got it wrong at some stage, more often than not for some of us, where the first impressions are not the correct ones, because there are deeper levels to this behavior, to humanity, than just behavior. We are not machines. Machines behave more or less in an expected way, always, and they don't reason why. And so behavior is about incidents and the actions that come out of those incidents. Below behavior, we have this whole area of attitude. Attitude is a repeated behavior or a pattern of behavior. Given the same circumstances, the same context, and the same stimulus, a person will respond or react in the same kind of way. That is an attitude. It can be positive or it can be negative. And so I'm sure many of you are chocolate people. Any chocolate people? I'm sure. People that just love chocolate. No matter what the circumstance or the situation, if you are offered chocolate, unless you were sort of really feeling sick or something like that, chocolate is a very attractive option in your life. I have a son like that, 3 o'clock in the morning. You say, hey, Joshua, I want some chocolate for you. And he could be coming out of the deepest sleep and he would appreciate it and stuff it into his face. It's not the same when you offer him something like cabbage or broccoli or something like that. He's got a negative attitude. And so the pattern of behavior is predictable on the one side to being positive, and it's also predictable on the other side to being negative. And so as a result of that, we can start determining and predicting attitudes that are good and bad. So, you know, one of the things that seems to be universal as well that I picked up from all over the world, when I say to people, okay, so just to test attitude, here's the good news, your mother-in-law is coming to stay for 3 months. And very rarely do I get a positive attitude as a result of that. Most often people say, oh, no, those kind of things. And why is that? Well, it goes into something that is deeper than just the attitude and the pattern of behavior that becomes predictable. It goes into your value system. Now, we've spoken about values over and over again, and it's ethics that come out of this, and it's a sort of an understanding of why these things are there. So the value system gives you your paradigms. That's a way of thinking. The paradigm is based on the parameters. We think like this inside it. It's worked like this in the past. And so as a result of that, we've got certain patterns of predictability, even in our thinking. It's called patternization. And it is a thing that sometimes holds us back from breaking out of the box or doing things that are new, like new, important, efficient, effective strategies for our organization. It's also the rules for success. And so this is the most simple definition that I have for values. The rules for success. We all want to be successful, but it's not enough just to be successful. We all build rules into the success that we want. So be it successful in business, or be it successful in your social life, be it successful in your sporting life, you want to be successful. And whether you've written these things down or not, there are certain rules. If I had to ask you and say, so what are the rules to be successful in your company or in your department? You will be able to tell me, do this, do this, do this, don't do these things. Those are the rules to be successful there. So sometimes those rules are very legitimate, and sometimes they just are too old and they've lost their significance and they've got to be reassessed. And this is where strategy really starts kicking in to make the difference, to change people's approach to success and what success really means. Below values, this is the big one, is belief systems. This is the place where we develop truth. And truth is essentially chosen. So it's your chosen truth. And we have truth about different things. Depending on what your truth is, about people around you, about your business, about your strategy, that will determine your rules for success. As a result of those rules for success, that will determine the patterns of behavior that you will display in the working context and the way that you live your passion or your cause. And if somebody comes to see you, they should be able to see your behavior is tied up with those kinds of truths that you actually have. And so this is how it all hangs together. This is the construct of our behavior. So when somebody does something, it's not just that they do it. It goes back to their attitudes, it goes back to their value system, and then it goes back to their chosen truth or their belief system that actually gives voice to their behaviors down the line as well. So that's a very important understanding of where our values and our ethics, how it all ties up. But it also leads us into certain other areas. If you're going to implement strategy and you're going to come up with resistance to that strategy, what are you going to do? And in addition to that, you've got to understand why certain people might be supporting you or certain people might be really fighting against you. You've got to understand what your competition is doing and what you're going to do in response to that. And are you going to break the rules? And if you're breaking the rules, is that legitimate? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? But it does always come back to the truth. And so there are three areas of truth. And for this, I subscribe to a chap called Hartman, who created a lifelong study of understanding truth and why people do the things that they do. He established essentially this, that there are three kinds of truth. Truth about yourself, truth about others, and then truth about the systems in which you operate. So if you have truth about yourself, it is important that that kind of truth is accurate, and it is not something that is being forced on you by some teacher that was horrible and was putting you down all the time, or maybe even a family member, or maybe somebody in your peer group. That could all be very, very disastrous. If your truth about yourself is inaccurate, you're going to end up doing things that are really not helpful at all. So we have coming out of that things like diminished self-worth, where tragically, for decades and decades in this beloved country of ours, certain policies, which were essentially evil, were telling certain groups of people that they were unworthy, that they were not capable, that they were diminished in some kind of a way. And as a result of that, the response of those people sometimes became an adoption and then an adaptation of what they thought that they could do or not do. And that is one of the greatest tragedies of our existence today. But it's not only a thing that we've discovered over here in South Africa, where people have diminished self-worth, but around the world, where certain groups or certain genders have been put down, and this truth is just being propagated and propagandized and forced upon people, so that their truth about themselves is one of diminishment, as opposed to trying to explore and maximize themselves into everything that they could be. And that is tragic. The flip side of that coin is also apparent, where certain people have an overestimation of what they're able to do and what their self-value is. That is also inappropriate, because they will end up doing things that are selfish, are bigoted, narcissistic even, and end up in disasters, not only for ourselves, but sometimes for many of the people around us and the world at large. Your truth about other people. And this is the area where prejudice comes in, where we have certain stereotypes, where we do profiling, or else you miss opportunity. Your truth about certain suppliers could be biased. Under a previous manager or owner, a particular supplier might really have blown it with your organization. But the truth is that they've changed and they've jacked up their systems. Maybe they need another chance to prove themselves. Or you could have an overinflated truth about something. These people always deliver the goods. But when you go and test it, you might find that they're really actually mediocre in the light of competition of other suppliers that you would actually have. It also goes down to individuals as well. What's your individual truth about some of the people? We've got the syndrome of the inner circle to most leaders in organizations. And the leader has some kind of truth about those people, which might or might not be legitimate. Look out for that one. Then the truth about the system. Does the system work for you? Does this organization work for you? Is it actually helping you or not helping you? Is it something that is going to be able to take you on this track towards greater success and sustainable competitiveness in the future? So look out for those three truths and make sure that they are as accurate as possible, because here's the great dichotomy. We strive to have character. Now, character, good description of this, character is the strength with which we hold on to our truth. So we hold on to this truth that we have developed. Where do we develop that truth? From our upbringing, from our formative years, from our teachers, from our parents, from our family, from books that we've read, from our education, from our experience. So we have this kind of truth about ourselves, about the people around us, about the systems in which we operate, right through to the universal system. And so we've got character, we hold on to this. But if we only hold on to that, we stifle our own growth, and we are not true to, growing. So on the one hand, we want to have character. On the other hand, we want to have growth. The two are in competition with each other. This is where the tension exists within our own lives. And within you as leaders, you're always going to be struggling with this for the rest of your life. On the one hand, hold on to the truth that you've always had, and that is a good thing, as long as that truth is accurate. Because on the other hand, there are new truths that we are being confronted with every single day. There's new research that comes out. There's new technologies. People are displaying themselves with different character, and they are going through improvement, and they are changing, and we need to be changing with them if we are going to grow at all. New opportunities present themselves. Strategically, if we get stuck in one little area of something that might have been old, then we are on the road to disaster, not on the road to competitiveness, because your competitors are growing. Your competitors are looking for the new opportunities. Your competitors are releasing old truths that are no longer accurate and embracing new truths that are more accurate. And so the great problem is that inaccurate truth leads to inappropriate actions. Inaccurate truth, can you have an inaccurate truth? Yes, you can.
Now.
In the old days, people that actually ran comrades and ran marathons and so on used to believe that, hey, we have to eat lots of pasta and drink lots of beer. And as a result of that, then you can run the comrades or run a marathon very, very well. Research came out and indicated that, no, it's not about these carbohydrates that really help. You need to have a lot more protein, and that gives you long-term energy for running something like the comrades or a marathon. And so the technology and the science actually proved that an old truth was inaccurate. And so the actions that people took in the old days was very inappropriate. Nowadays, there's a new kind of a truth. How it lasts, well, that's only dependent on the research, on the science, and on the technology that comes out. So the truth about your industry, the truth about the kinds of things that you are doing and how you respond to the world around you, if it's inaccurate and if it's old hat, it's going to lead to inappropriate actions. You're going to be doing the wrong things. Your competitors might have a new truth. They might have new technology, new science. And as a result of that, their actions are going to be more appropriate to success than yours were. So look out for that. That's very important in understanding yourselves and understanding the people around you in your own organization. Back to values and ethics. I have this probably 8 out of 10 strategies that we undertake with organizations. People want to say we have to have integrity. What is this integrity thing? Because integrity is not necessarily morality. Because you've got to define morality on the basis of some kind of belief system. Integrity is a different animal. Please understand what integrity is. Integrity comes from the old Latin word, it's the same root word, for being consistent. So you got to, when you are have integrity, you've got to be consistent from the inside to the outside. So a person has integrity. We don't talk about an integrous person. We talk about an integrated person where their truth or their belief system lines up with their value system, which lines up with their attitudes, and then lines up with their behavior. And you can see that they are consistent from their behavior right through back to their belief system. And so that's the consistency that people look for in leaders. They look for that in organizations as well. So when you talk integrity, it's really, really important to have it. You've got to mix the integrity as much as possible. If your belief systems can accommodate morality, and you say, this is the moral thing to do. This is how we serve people. This is how we serve the business community. This is how we serve our customers and our clients and even our suppliers. That then becomes a moral issue as opposed to just becoming a great strategist for the mafia or some organization that is devoid of morals, but still might have integrity. You know, they believe in ripping off everybody else, and they behave in a way that rips off everybody else. That's integrity, but it's devoid of morality. Don't confuse the two. We want morality, but we also want integrity to make sure that we are not, what's the opposite of integrity? Hypocrisy. When you believe one thing and you do another. That's it. So, this impact of truth, very important. It's going to bring about certain change. And the way that you change your truth through your education, through exposure, maybe reading things, going to seminars, exposing yourselves to new ideas, which you have to as any kind of leader, be that in business or in the public sector or in the NGO kind of sector as well. You've got to be able to expose yourself to new things, which are going to exhibit and demonstrate truth. That's going to bring about a certain amount of change, because some people have said that you shall know the truth, and the truth will bring you pain. Because a large part of that pain, and that goes back to Plato, even, a large part of that pain is just, now that I know the truth, I'm going to have to change. Now that I know this new technology, we're going to have to adopt it. We've got to change all our business systems. Oh my gosh, what a schlep. Then, in addition to that, the finding of truth gives an anchor on which we can hang our ethics, values, ultimately our behavior. So here's the quotable quote for the evening, I suppose. Significant growth always takes place outside of our comfort zones. I'll say that again. Significant growth always takes place outside of our comfort zones. So we develop a comfort zone, and in fact, it doesn't have to do with comfort, it's just a zone of predictability. So when things are predictable, we know what's coming next, and so it's not much of a problem, even though it might be painful and really boring. Significant growth, however, takes you out of that zone of predictability or comfort, and it puts you in a different place. And so that's where change is. And that is the result, more often than not, of a strategy that's going to lead you to a sustained success. It's going to make you more and more competitive. It's going to make you more and more dynamic as you change. So what are the rules for rules? These are just some of the things as you develop your ethics, as you develop your value system. First of all, it's got to work. Why have a rule if it's not working anymore? Some rules and old ethics, really, they're just traditions now. And we do it because we've always done it. It doesn't mean that it works or brings success at all. So what does it mean to work? Well, it's got to generate sustainable success. Remember, not short-term success, not making a quick buck. This is sustainable. If you are doing this particular thinking in strategy, this is not just a tactic that's going to turn a profit next week and then you close the business. This has got to be long-term, sustainable success. 20 years, legacy stuff, 30 years, 40 years. When you hand it over or you sell it for a great profit and retire to the place of your dreams. So be good for people. I believe in this. If any business is not good for people, usually it gets rejected by those self-same people. And people are your clients. People are your suppliers. If it's not helping people, it will probably collapse in the long term. If we do this, here's the checklist, and you can put this on your dashboard forever. I wish a lot more people would do it. If we do this action, will it work? If we do this action, will it bring success? Is my success sustainable in the big picture? Or is it just a quick buck? Or is it just a quick bit of gratification? Or is it just, doing something for the here and now because it can't be sustained? And then number 4, if we do this action, is it advancing society or is it causing some kind of a pain thing? And that would be really, really sad. We want to bring about, some kind of social development. We want to bring about business development within the business community. There's got to be an advancing society as opposed to causing pain. So it's great to have a strategy for war. Just look what's happening in North Korea at the moment. Is that going to bring an advanced society, or is it's already causing pain? People are anxious. People are really nervous. Spoke to somebody who lives in Southeast Asia just recently, And they say, we don't know. We're going to be the people that are going to get trampled on when these big elephants fight with their nuclear missiles and all that kind of thing. So it's already causing anxiety, and people are stepping up on their intake of calming pills and that kind of stuff. Not really good. Have a look at those 4 things, that checklist. Just check it in line with the kind of things, and it's just a nice little go-to place. It's the kind of dials that you would have on your ethics dashboard. If we do this action, is it going to work? If we do it, is it going to bring success? Is it going to be sustainable in the big long-term picture? And then is it advancing society, or is it causing pain? Those are just what I think are pretty helpful rules for rules. You don't have to adopt them, and if you don't ever mention it in any assignment, no problem. Okay, so here's a nice little quotable quote as well, and it comes from the Cornish engine. Somebody actually discovered it on a little brass plaque that was put in a big steam engine way back about 150 years ago. And it just said this: do something besides the bare fact of what you are expected to do. Excellence in any branch of life implies voluntary exertion. Excellence in any branch of life implies voluntary exertion. Be that in your social situation, be that in your working situation. You've got to have some kind of voluntary exertion that makes it work. And that's going to be for you
phone.
and
It's
the
going to
people
go off
around
now.
you as well. So if you just settle down and do what you're expected to do, you're going to have just an expected life. Do something extraordinary to make it extraordinary in your life and in the lives of other people that might be around you. That's a very nice way of actually putting it. Volunteerism is something that people think, that's what I do on Saturday afternoons when I look after kids, or I go do hospital visitations or whatever it is. No, it's doing extra in the work that you do. I know, for example, that some people are putting themselves through this MBA, and it's not just being paid for by their, by their principals, by their business and so. This is an example of your voluntary exertion. It is off your own bat that you are doing this thing, and that's going to be for the betterment of the people around you, for the business enterprise, for your enterprise. And imagine all the people that you are going to impact as a result of your success into the future. So comfort zone is just a zone of predictability. I've mentioned that already. Let me leave you with this one. And this now speaks directly, and it's a little bit off track from what we've said already, but somebody asked about this, and this is a response that I can give you all for this. How do you make your choices and your strategic choices? You've got great companies, you've got good companies and mediocre companies. The great companies are able to deliver something that is different to those that are just good companies and those mediocre companies. So everything that you do for your clients, be it a service offering or a product or something like that, it's going to come down to product, the service that backs up that product, and the price that you're actually charging, the reward that you get for solving that problem. When you look at it, people are going to set you apart and actually put you in the category of somebody that is great, or somebody that's just okay, or somebody that's really mediocre and just okay. And then you've got below that, people that I'll never ever do business with again, if I can possibly help it. So when it comes to product, you can have best quality, okay quality, and worst quality. Service, best service, okay service, no service at all. And this would be the after sales service on a product, or the way that we interface with each other, the quality of the engagements through the call center, or engaging with salespeople, or even with the leadership itself. And then the price, this is the best price, which in most instances means the cheapest for most people that are consuming your products or services. Then you've got okay price, and then the most costly, which is the most expensive. When people develop strategies, it usually comes down to this. Great companies have the 3 best things. They have the best quality, best service, and the cheapest price. Those are the great companies. They'll never go out of business. If you can get that right, you're going to be around for a long, long time. Best quality, best service, best price. That's it. The good companies usually are in a position where they have to choose 2 of these 3 things that are best. So you could have best quality and best service, but then you're not going to be the cheapest. The customer's going to pay a lot for it, but they will get best quality and best service. So it's like buying a prestige kind of motor car. You go spend a lot on it, but you expect best quality. You expect best service. You know, after sales service, and when something goes wrong, it shouldn't actually go wrong in the first place, eh? And then you expect that best service when they come and help you, but you've paid through your neck already for it. Sometimes you have best quality, and it's the cheapest, but they will never talk to you again. And that's a good company. Sometimes it's not the best quality. You picked up something that's okay, but you get an amazing service that is after-sales service. The people engage with you on an ongoing basis, and it's even cheap. But you don't get the best quality. You get something that is, you know, sort of middling on the road. So those are the good companies. The mediocre companies, they will have one: best quality, or the best service, or it's the cheapest. Not all three, not even two, just one. And then you get the companies that you really don't want to do business with. Again, the guys who don't do strategy, the guys who don't really care. They're just okay. The product, yeah, it's okay. Service, yeah, it's okay. The price, yeah, it's okay. The companies that are no longer in business, make sure you never get associated with one of these. Worst quality, no service, most costly. Okay, I'm through for this evening. Hopefully you've done it. You've been able to pick up something from this, and you can take this forward into your thinking about strategy and build it into your strategies. There's been a lot of nuggets that I've given you over here, which is not in your texts, and it's not even in your reading, some of it. And but it might be helpful in the way that you think about things as you know, as it is. Remember, everything starts with a thought. Bring that thought into reality, then we will see that you have some kind of passion, and passion is going to be able to take you through the bad times and even the good times. It'll moderate it, or at least give you enormous enjoyment. All right, everybody good? Just give me a thumb. Good. All right, go and enjoy the rest of the evening. I've got a lot of marking to do. You'll be getting your feedback on your discussion from the forums and all that kind of stuff as well. And I'll be seeing you in about 10 days' time when we, but I'll see you next week at the Zoom. So that's great. Have a good one. Work on your strategies. Ciao.